The idea was to create a firm that had a diversified set of exposures. One of the reasons for that is that we do recognize that there tends to be a certain amount of cyclicality associated with various strategies.
Oh, interesting what you mentioned about building those relationships with the vendors, because obviously you guys are trying to get the highest quality data possible, highest quality information possible, to translate that into research, into trading edge. And I think that's probably a part of the quant business that I haven't heard that many people speak about. And it's very interesting that you say that. Now, moving on to the topic of just Versor's edge in general. And we've talked about those two different strategies, your merger arb strategies, as well as your managed future strategies, both of which are extremely interesting. For me, the merger arb one was particular. Like I read that article even just right before this, and I was fascinated. But I'd like to hear about not just all your strategies, but where have you seen the biggest gains? Which among your strategies have generated Versor, I guess, the most gains, the most amount of edge, depending on how you want to think about it. I guess, DeWayne, you can take this one.
Yeah, that's asking somebody to pick their favorite child. That's we love all their children equally. I would say, when we started the firm 12 years ago, um, from the outset, the idea was to create a firm that had a diversified set of exposures. Uh, and the reason behind that, so we're a multi-strat. So we have multi-strategies that we offer. We're not a multi-strategy fund in traditional sense, in that you don't have a flagship multi-strategy offering like a number of other people that offer multiple strategies. Well, as a firm, holistically, we do have varied strategy offerings. And one of the reasons for that is that we do recognize that there tends to be a certain amount of cyclicality associated with various strategies. Nishant and I talked about two strategies that are completely uncorrelated with one another. So Nishant described the get strategy that has done extremely well, particularly versus this other managed futures peer group. But that strategy has an explicit objective. It fits in their portfolios where folks are seeking to mitigate risk, right? This notion of positive convexity tends to express itself most during periods of high market dispersion, when there are more opportunities, cross-sectional opportunities across geographies to put relative value bets that Nishant is describing. Those environments tend to occur when there's heightened market volatility. When there's more equity market volatility, that strategy does better because dispersion is higher. Equity market volatility happens to oftentimes coincide with equity markets not doing too well. Now, that's an interesting attribute for one to have in one's portfolio, and that strategy does particularly well during these heightened stress environments, generally speaking. Now, the merger arbitrage strategy doesn't necessarily have the same convexity benefit, but it does well across multiple market regimes. What you can express there is event-specific risk, rather than taking a call on market or expressing ourselves using some sort of market dynamic, is really looking at event-specific risk. But there's environments where those event-specific risks are particularly abundant, and there are lots of deals. There are environments where those event-specific risks perhaps are being dampened by something that's regulatory in nature or political in nature. Um, but the important thing in across all of our strategies and for Philosophic as a firm is to have a varied offering for ourselves, because the partners are significantly invested alongside our clients, and for our clients, so that's able to weather the entirety of a market cycle.
We've talked throughout the conversation about the strategies you guys run at Versor, the story, even just now about recruitment and talent and being a global operation. And I guess with all this, I want to hear, if you had to say one thing, what would you say is Versor's success factor? What makes Versor special? Both of you guys. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, so I would say our success factor is, I think being true pioneers. I mentioned our Genesis story that goes back over 30 years ago. True pioneers and the use of things that people call AI today, right? And I think AI is defined, is evolved over time. So true pioneers in the use of alternative data, uh, advanced quantitative methods, uh, and decades of deep research in this space. I think that what truly differentiates us versus some of our peers.
I was gonna say what DeWayne was gonna say, but I will add to that. I think the second thing that differentiates us is that because of our research driven focus and DeWayne and Deepak and the other founders tremendous client focus, we have a very unique product offering, and that is one of our edges in that we have constructed strategies that meet client needs but aren't sort of existing and oversaturated in the marketplace. So we spoke about two on this call. There aren't that many quant merger event driven approach strategies out there. I think that's a tremendous source of differentiated edge. The get strategy is very unique in how it approaches the managed futures space. And you'll find even with our other strategies in each space, we have taken the time to use the AI and machine learning tools and apply them in a very specific way that not only fits client mandates and needs, but is also uncorrelated and a differentiated approach to markets compared to our peers.